Hello, everyone. Welcome once again to Geeks Not Nerds, the podcast. I'm Captain Logan.
And I am Vince.
Vince, what is today's topic?
Today we are talking about things that we don't like. No,
Yes, things we don't like.
We're asking whether or not a person can be objective and still have particular subgenres or entire genres that they just do not like.
Yeah, entire genres or subgenres that you just completely stray away from, and if that is a completely subjective thing, if it's like you're not giving things its fair shake if you stray away from entire things, and is the question is that the case with a person like that? So what Vince and I are going to do is we're each going to give you one or two of our personal genres or subgenres that we generally stray away from, and we're going to kind of dissect that a little bit and decide if we're being objective enough about things, or if it's just a taste issue. If it's just, we've seen enough of them, and we generally don't care or don't like them. So what's one of your personal ones, Vince, where you just, as a rule, you generally kind of stray away from it?
I'm going to say 60s television, but it really extends to 60s camp.
Okay.
And I can't stand, I can't get into campy Batman. I can't do it. I can't even get into James Bond. I can't do it. I realize that's not television, but...
Yeah, and let me also preface this with you define camp in different ways than other people would necessarily, especially people who lived during that time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like not everybody would call James Bond camp just as a rule. There are things that I would say are kind of campy in James Bond, but I'd say that it's something that can be taken more seriously than something like Batman.
Yeah, and that's the thing, it seems like such a ridiculous concept to me. Here's a guy who has a gadget for every situation. That's Batman and James Bond together.
Yeah.
I mean, suddenly I can use this thing that's attached to my wrist because I was totally prepared for this random thing that was going to happen.
But is it that it's actually campy, or is it just that something about the mood of it makes it feel campy to you? Because, Mission Impossible, I don't think most people would call that really campy.
I've never seen the TV series.
Oh, you haven't? All right, okay.
But other things that I can't stand from the 60s that aren't necessarily camp.
Okay, all right.
The 60s Honeymooners.
I never saw that.
Oh, can't stand it.
Yeah?
They take a moment in the middle of the episode to sing a song.
Yeah, okay.
What happened to the really cool 50s? This sort of cynical view of marriage and living in the city and things like this. And then suddenly we have... I'm Jackie Gleason, and I'm going to croon to you for a couple moments poorly.
What about the Munsters and the Addams Family?
Oh, was that 60s?
Oh, yeah. Sure. Yeah, those are 60 shows.
For some reason, I was just thinking 50s.
No,
You know what? I think you're... excuse me. I think you're right. I don't think there's any way that stuff could have made it on the air in the 50s, because in the 50s, that stuff was all Ozzy and Harrietted up.
Yeah, sure.
But, I don't hate...
No, Munsters was 63, 64.
I don't hate the Munsters, but I can't enjoy it too greatly much. It's just so easy, if that makes any sense. Here's the situation, and here's all the comedy that's developed from it. And,
yeah, but that's the definition of a sitcom.
Yeah.
That's not just the 60s.
As it turns out, I don't watch many sitcoms.
Well, see, there you go. I mean, there's a whole other subgenre. No, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to grill you or anything.
No, that's fair. But
this is not the Vince roast.
Addams Family, I sort of found the same way, but I like the Addams Family.
See, I like Munsters more than Addams Family, but that's a taste thing. I like the actors in that show better.
I'll say I like Herman Munster a lot.
Yeah, me too.
I
like Grandpa Munster a lot. That actor was hilarious.
Herman Munster is he's just adorable. I mean, he seems like a big, cuddly, potentially dangerous guy. Kind of like Lenny from Of Mice and Men.
Oh, okay.
Only not quite as dumb, more just accidentally dangerous.
You really think about things in far different ways than I do, Vince.
You think about mice from time to time.
Did you know the guy who played Grandpa Munster was not very old when he was playing that role, so they had to really doctor him up to make him look older, and the makeup job was apparently so good that when he got that age, he looked like that?
That's pretty awesome.
And they buried him in his costume.
You guys couldn't see it, but that pause was me going, oh. That was the expression on my face. But
I figured I would mix a little bit of interesting pop culture trivia in my Vince roast.
I think that's an interesting thing when people are so intimately tied to one of their characters or to something that they've created that they want to be buried in that guise.
Mm-hmm.
So, because how many times have you seen something where a character dies and they are that way in the afterlife? They're like, oh, I died while I was naked in a bathtub, so now I'm naked in a bathtub in the afterlife.
Right, no, I can't tell you the amount of times I've seen that. So anyway, getting back to the thing with you and 60s stuff. So is it just a taste thing? Is it just you don't like the tone of some of that stuff, or is it that period was producing a lot of things that you don't like already? Like what do you think it is? And understand, I'm not judging you because we're going to get to one of mine in a minute too. You know, I'm not judging. I'm just asking what you think it is.
No, it's fair. It's hard to pin down because. So much of it, I just watch and think, man, I don't even want to sit here and think about this critically. But I think that if I were to sit down and watch a Batman episode, I would be able to point out the things like, this is what's supposed to be funny. This is what's supposed to be funny.
And it's just not to you.
It's just not to me. And
you're also not an absurdist humor guy. That's
really.
The thing, and that's my kind of humor. Like there's a lot of things that I think you're more of a realistic humor guy. You're more of a down to earth. Things that are naturally funny, and for me, I find things funny sometimes just because they're ultra random and out there. That's not for everybody.
Generally, that's not my shtick, but of course, it's not my shtick. It wouldn't be my bag because I'm not the one giving the joke. But like me, I'm very much so a dark humor type of guy, and innocent humor doesn't necessarily find its way into my repertoire a lot. So if I'm going to sit down and, like, for example, for me, Ghostbusters and Blues Brothers being a good example of the things that I like, both 80s movies,
right?
Interestingly enough, but there's lots of profanity in the Blues Brothers, and there's people that are trying to help out a church that wouldn't necessarily be helping out a church. So there's irony and things like that, and I can appreciate the way they do it because it's more of a tone that I can appreciate. This is sort of a gritty humor. But you go back to Batman, and they employ an irony that I'm going to point out.
All right.
Some days you just can't get rid of a bomb.
Right.
So, of course, he doesn't want to kill the nuns. He doesn't want to kill the ducks.
Right.
So, what's he going to do with this bomb? And I forget why I was going to say irony, but it made sense in my head when I said it.
All right.
But, so I can appreciate things that employ certain techniques that are the same in two different genres.
Mm-hmm.
But I cannot appreciate it from the one that I don't like. I just can't do it. And I think it is really a taste issue. I think there are things that a person can go, that's clever, and I don't think it's funny.
Yeah.
And
that's fair.
That's where I'm coming from with campy Batman. I just can't do it. Like, that is clever. I don't think it's funny.
Yeah. All right. That's cool.
So what is it that gets your goat?
Well, for me, it's sword and sorcery, Vince. I'm not a fantasy guy. I never have been. And I've had people my whole life trying to give me fantasy things and trying to get me really into certain things. And I'm not going to say that I don't like all of it. You know what I mean? Because it's a very broad thing. You know, so I'm just saying that as a rule, I generally don't. I like Harry Potter to a point, and I like Star Wars, which is science fantasy before it's science fiction. But I can't get like really into those things. You know what I mean? Like I'm not a giant fan of any of those things, and I couldn't get real into Lord of the Rings. I enjoyed watching those movies exactly one time, and I just don't feel the need to watch them again. It isn't that they're bad, and it's not that I don't get them. It's just they're not. That stuff's not character driven enough to me. Like, and I'm such a character guy that a lot of. And so, like, I'm citing those as the ones that I like to watch, and then like most of the rest of the stuff that people have thrown at me, I've just been like, I can't get excited about this. It's not real intriguing to me, and I think a lot of the time it just seems like they're, and I'm sure I'm stepping on somebody's toes when I say this, but a lot of times it seems like they all have kind of the same point. And that may be partly just me not understanding it, and I always say that because maybe I don't understand it. I also had that with anime, where I'm like, I don't really like it, but I'm not saying that it's bad. I'm saying I don't get it. The thing with most fantasy is a lot of it is about the big giant concepts that aren't really talking to about individuals. So it's like good versus evil. We have good versus evil in a lot of superhero stuff too, and so it'd be easy for somebody to say, well, then how can you like Batman? Well, because there's a psychology there, So I mean, like you have the good versus evil thing, but you also have a person that I'm getting in his head and stuff like that. And I just don't feel like I don't feel like Bilbo Baggins was a character that I really got into his head. It seems like those are more those characters are more a stereotype that we follow, and that's not a bad thing to say. They're supposed to be, and I just don't get it. I can't get excited about it.
So, considering that superheroes, let's consider superheroes in relation to fantasy here real quick.
Fair enough, and some of them are fantasy characters.
Well, yeah. They'd have to be. I like Conan, so that is fantasy, sword and sorcery.
That is sword and sorcery, yeah.
But when you look at something like Batman in relation to Conan, you have a character. Here's one guy that you follow throughout the entire thing, and you don't feel like for example, there's so many Batman things that are just plot driven. In fact, if you go back to a comic book that predate the '80s, most all of them are plot driven. And
and again, go back to '60s Batman, like we were talking about, and some people will say that the reason that show was good was because that's like the comics on the screen, because that's what the comics were at that point, completely plot driven. Yeah,
and I can't get behind that.
Right? No, I get you. I'm just saying that's
a little tally in Vince's favor.
Yeah, right.
But during the Cap segment, but. I'm forgetting where I'm going with this.
I'm not going to argue with you about '60s Batman. We've had our rounds on this. There's no reason to argue about it. It is a taste issue between us. I feel like I know why you don't like it, and I feel like you know why I like it. There's no good reason,
I'm not saying that he can't. I'm not saying that you shouldn't. I'm saying that I don't.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But so you.
And I'm saying I cannot imagine my life without campy Batman.
So you can appreciate a more plot-driven superhero comic book or a superhero media of some kind. But you can't appreciate a more plot-driven fantasy comic book or media of some kind.
I don't know. I think part of it is the setting, where it's. This is going to sound weird. This is not going to make any kind of sense, but it's just the way it is in my head. So bear with me. I'm bearing my soul right now about fantasy. Okay, so a lot of, and I don't mean fantasy. I mean really sword and sorcery, that kind of fantasy. Because obviously fantasy means a lot of things. But sword and sorcery fantasy. I have a hard time getting into the setting a lot of the time. And setting's not always a big deal for me, but you get things where, well, it's kind of period, but you're not usually on our Earth. You're not usually at a place where you know exactly where you are. You're not at a particular time and place. A lot of times it's kind of more ethereal. You know what I mean? You're in the ether. It's some point in the distant past. And Star Wars was a long, long time ago in a galaxy far away. I think it was a little bit easier for me to get behind that because it was in space instead of in the jungle. I don't know why, or not the jungle, but like a magic kingdom. I think it's just the setting. For some reason, I can't get excited about it.
Do you think that maybe it's because when you're in space, you know that you have no directional relationship, so therefore there's no hang up. You don't really feel like you're being pulled one direction or another because you have no bearing. But when you're into this sword and sorcery thing, so much of it is very much so based on past cultures from Earth cultures that you have this relationship between all of them. So suddenly,
I also think when I was a kid, I'm sorry.
Well, I was just gonna say, so you're in this Egyptian-looking tribe, but suddenly you're in this Aztec-looking tribe, and suddenly you're in England, and you're like, how is this working out? How is it that all these things exist at once and in proximity to each other?
Yeah, and if you're on film, everybody film or television, everybody has like a British-esque accent, but I don't know where I am, and they all talk really formally, but I don't know where that came from. That kind of stuff. But I think also part of it, and I think I've come out of this a little bit because I went to a Renaissance festival for the first time in like 03 or 04 and really enjoyed it and kind of started to get a little bit more why people like this kind of stuff, but I still don't seek it out,
Mm-hmm.
but I guess I can appreciate it to a point in a way I couldn't before, but I still don't like go after it. But anyway, I think when I was a kid, it was more that I was more comfortable with times and places that had modern technology or futuristic technology, where I had a hard time enjoying old period pieces. Where in my head when I was a kid, it was just, it's boring because they don't have cars. You know what I mean?
Technological advance is pertinent to the enjoyment of the piece.
Yeah, and I think, and then these days, from more of a narrative standpoint, it's just, and you understand. You do have this sometimes with science fiction also. The better science fiction doesn't do this. But it seems like And the better fantasy doesn't do this either. But it just seems like with when you have magic, it's easier to get out of any situation with a plot device, with some kind of object, where it's like, well, we're stuck in this place, but now I'm going to dream up a mystical object that will get me out of this place. But you can do that with science fiction too. It's like, oh, but somebody invented something that fixes this and gets. I mean,
the ultimate nullifiers.
The ultimate nullifier, exactly. Yeah. And how else were we gonna beat Galactus, really? And
Ghost Rider, according to the animated series.
One of my favorite examples of this is in the original Star Trek. You know the reason Gene Roddenberry invented the transporter? Because he didn't think he was going to have the budget to take a shuttlecraft down to the planet every week. So he needed a plot device to get a person from one place to another. I mean, that's like one of the best examples of that. I just feel like in more of the fantasy I've read, it seems to happen that way more often. And I think more of it, too, is that a lot of the plots seem to be driven by an artifact, where it's like the plot is there's a holy grail and we have to go get it. And I just can't get as excited about that as I can about something where the conflict is more an internal conflict. Again, I think it's a taste issue.
You have a good point. I mean, for example, Harry Potter, since everybody's seen Harry Potter by now or read the books, they attack each other and... of course, this extremely experienced wizard who's died and come back to life should be able to just squash this little boy. But because they have similar wands, there's this link that happens, and they get to survive for a little bit longer. And that seems like a contrivance. Like, really? That's what's going to keep Harry Potter alive? Not cunning or
yeah, it's something he does.
Yeah, there's no plot that builds up to it. It's just here's this similarity that they seem to have, and it's going to keep him alive for a little bit longer.
And yet, I can get behind Harry Potter a little bit more than other things because in other places it is more character driven. Where there are a lot of places where consequences happen because of something a person does. But it does, especially by the end, seem to kind of fall back a little bit on the whole mythos over characterization problem.
That's one of the reasons that I always like Conan a little bit more, is because Conan hates magic so much that Conan finds ways that you.
So does Superman.
Too true.
Sorry, go ahead.
I mean, you will never find Conan using magic to solve a problem, and that's what makes Conan interesting.
Okay.
Now, Conan also suffers from the problem that every so often it will be plot-driven, because I think in fantasy you sometimes come to this sort of established reality where the characters are as good as they're going to be, if that makes any sense. They are the strongest, or they are the best at using whatever technique they do. I'm the best thief. I'm the best reaver. Mm-hmm. And I'm not even certain what a reaver is. But when you're...
Yeah, well, I don't remember there being a Firefly episode that was about the zombie-esque guys running around eating people. But,
over there, what are you doing? I'm raving. Leave me alone.
I'm raving.
But that was weird. But
what nationality is your reaver?
I think ethnically ambiguous. Is
yeah, I think so too.
But
that was an Irish Cockney reaver, I think. I don't know what that was.
Irish Cockney reaver is
both Irish and Cockney.
Pretty good tasting coffee, just to say.
Oh, I don't know. It sounded more like a vodka drink to me.
No, it's Russian.
Yeah, but you were just adding everything. Hey, we'll find a way to make it Jamaican, and it'll get really... Anyway, sorry, good.
But where was I going with this?
I have no idea.
Oh, so I think sometimes you have these characters who have nothing that they need to learn. Mm-hmm. They just have obstacles that they have to overcome.
Yeah.
So is that even...
So you have conflict, but is it telling us anything about the character?
Yeah. So you have something that needs to be resolved, which they do. So it's like comic books in certain ways. I mean, if you go back to the old-style comic books, or even current-style comic books, depending, they... things that are plot-driven have a character that just has an obstacle to solve, and that's it.
And I think you're absolutely right when you kind of pegged me earlier and asked about superheroes versus fantasy stuff. I'm a walking contradiction, because I can enjoy that kind of story more when it's in the right setting. Mm-hmm. It's kind of a taste thing, but I think it's important that we recognize this about ourselves when we have it. I think I don't know how to overcome it being a taste thing, but I think it's at least good that I know I have that, And with the 60s thing, I think it's somewhat similar too, where like you can't always pinpoint what it is, And I think it's important to know that you I think it's important for yourself that you think about it.
Yeah, you see, for me, like Tango and Cash, that's a 80s camp movie, but I can't enjoy 60s Batman. Like it's not that it's an action thing with a lot of comedic elements, or it's not even that it's an action thing with comedic elements that are making fun of the action or even action heroes. That doesn't bother me. But there is something about 60s stylings that I just can't get behind. It seems so very stage, very presentational to me.
Yeah, and it is.
And that's what it is. Like when I would watch 50s honeymooners, I would think to myself, well, here's stuff that's filmed on a stage, but that's just par for the course. But when I watch something for honeymooners from the 60s, I think to myself, well, here's something that is filmed on a stage, meant for the stage, and we just happen to have this variety show with a camera being filmed. I mean, that made no sense, but I think you understood.
Right.
So why does it bother me? Because I cannot palate it. Why is Jackie Gleason singing, and why is Batman trying not to kill ducks?
So let me ask you this then, for our listeners who are probably thinking of their own personal things and maybe coming to some of the same conclusions that we are about them, where it's like, well, I know I don't like that, but I don't know why, and there's other things like that, but I like it. Why is that? I mean, I think that everybody is going to be somewhat contradictory about stuff, and we're human, and that's what happens with us. So don't call me a hypocrite. I know that. I figured that one out on my own. So I think so my question then, Vince, is it a problem? Like if there's something like a big blanket thing where you're like, I don't like sword and sorcery, or I don't like anime, or I don't like rap music, or I don't like superheroes and capes. Is it bad that people have that, where they have this thing that they've completely shut themselves off from because they know they don't like it? Or should we expect people to try enough of it that they then make their conclusion?
I think that people should continue to challenge themselves, because I'm going to use anime and rap music as a good example here.
Ooh, can you find a way to put them together? Did you watch an anime that you didn't think you'd like that had some great rap music in it?
No? I watched an anime that I didn't like that had some rap music in it.
But was the rap music any good?
I don't remember. It was Afro Samurai, and I hated it. I couldn't.
Really? Because I know a lot of people who say that's great.
There's a lot of people who like it, do not like it,
All right.
do not care for it.
I heard the video game was good.
Oh.
Sorry.
I didn't play the video game. I don't know, but I hated the first episode that I watched. Anyway.
Sorry.
So I continue to challenge myself with anime. I'm not trying to stand up on my soapbox, because of course I've sort of stopped trying 60s things. But
I kind of stopped trying anime, and I did for a while. So.
But you will find that as you get into the things that you don't like, you will find things that you do like. And generally, the people who consume it the most are probably the people who are least equipped to help you find things that you like. So like, oh, well, you like Cowboy Bebop and Vampire Hunter D? Well, you would probably like this thing. And then they give you Fooly Cooly, and you look at it and you think, man, I was a foolie, and you sure ain't coolie.
Part of the problem is that you go to big fans of things because you expect that they know that they know them, that they're experts. But the problem with experts is that they know things. I mean, the problem with experts is that they're so close to it that it's difficult for them to remove their love for something to show it to someone else. I have that problem with Star Trek, and I think any big Trekkie trying to get other people to Star Trek is going to have that problem, where it's like, it's difficult to express why you like something that you're extremely passionate about, especially to somebody who is immediately not sure about it. I've shown Vince a couple of Trek episodes where he's like, it's okay, I just don't get why it's that great. That sort of thing. And it might be something that I figured he'd like based on his interest. It's hard for you to know if you're that close to it.
Mm-hmm. And it's unfair to say that I don't like all 60s camp. I suppose I did like the, and maybe you can call me on it if it's not camp, but
sure.
The gangster episode from Star Trek.
It's tough for me to decide whether or not you could call TOS camp or not, because at the time it wouldn't have been considered that. You have to have a little bit of historical perspective. 60s Batman, people were calling that camp in the 60s. They were making it that way on purpose. Star Trek, I don't know. When you have so many major science fiction writers of the day writing your episodes and taking your show seriously, it's hard to call that camp. But it's easy for us to look at it that way now, because comparatively with the sets and the effects, it feels campy. But if you were watching Star Trek in 1967, I don't think you would have said this is campy.
I mean, maybe it's just because there's a difference between the dramatic episodes and the sitcom episodes, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that's true.
Oh, the thing I was going to say about rap music, you know...
Sorry, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, that's fine. When I was a kid, I didn't like rap music at all. Mm-hmm. But then as I grew up, I found out that I like a little bit of Tupac. I like a little bit of Jay-Z. And it's worth to look into things that you don't necessarily like. Like, if you sit here and you think to yourself, man, I hate rap music, but you haven't heard of Pigeon John? Take a look into Pigeon John. I mean, there are things that are interesting, that voice modulation that these guys can do.
Sure.
That, the lyrics are sometimes clever. Sometimes thematically they're clever. Sometimes the beats are just clever.
I used to have this with... Well, I had that with rap music. I think I had the exact same thing that you had, where I heard something that I liked and had to figure out why I liked it. Mm-hmm. I had the same thing with reality TV for a long time, and I still do for a lot of it. Mm-hmm. It's really easy to go, well, reality TV is bad because it's not scripted, and it's taking away our great scripted shows. And, well...
It is.
It is, but that doesn't make it bad in and of itself. You know, and so maybe there's some of it that's fun to watch, and I realized that the ones that are a little bit more game showy I kind of like because I like game shows, you know what I'm saying? So, like, I found the thing that I liked about them. Lynch me if you want to, Vince, but, like, I don't hate Brooks and Dunn. Like, there's some, there's some, like, I don't love it, but, like,
when I was a kid, I liked Brooks and Dunn a lot.
See, that's what I'm saying about it. I think it's a nostalgia thing, because I liked it when I was a kid.
Yeah, I have their greatest hits and their Tightrope album.
See, I knew you couldn't really hit me in the face, because I know the Brooks and Dunn I have on my computer I got from your computer, so...
Yeah. That's the thing, is that I like most kinds of music except for, like, bubblegummy pop. Like, I can't stand Hillary Duff.
You like at least something from each of these genres.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't stand... I like pop music. Of course, I've come out on our GNNs before saying that I like Fall Out Boy and things like that.
Right,
So
yeah.
I like pop music.
But... No, and you know what? It's okay for you to like things that are wrong. I'm kidding. No, there are weird things that I like that most people don't, too. I happily can't think of anything right now, but...
Yeah, I get to give examples. But, I can't stand things like Hillary Duff. It's just,
I can't either.
The lyrics, they're just not sophisticated enough. The songs are just old hat to me. I can't stand it.
Well, it all sounds the same to me.
It's just this, endless drivel of, it's like going to a high school pageant that one of the kids wrote. So...
Wow, yeah, that's rough.
It is rough, and it's true. But suddenly I'm going to get a nasty letter from Hillary Duff. I'm like, you listen to our channel? She's like, not anymore.
Well, thanks a lot for subscribing for a few minutes. We really appreciate that. Well, Vince, do you want to throw out any final thoughts before we go to rants?
Final thoughts are that I think you can be objective in the face of your personal hatred or distaste. Yeah. But I feel like the chances of you really pursuing it and really giving it a fair shake are lessened by it.
Yeah, I'm going to say it's good to really broaden your palette and to allow yourself to know things about stuff that you don't necessarily love. Mm-hmm. I think that's healthy. I think it's healthy to have a broad knowledge base. I wanted to say that earlier. I'm glad I just remembered that again. Where even if you're not a big fan of something, if you can stomach it a little bit, it's always good to have extra knowledge. You're always going to find yourself in a situation where if only you knew more about sports, if only you knew more about music.
I find myself in the sports situation every day.
Exactly, yeah. And it makes me think about keeping up with sports a little bit. Because I'm a big fan of football or basketball, or I even like those all that much. No, although if I was going to pick one, it'd be basketball. But I mean, not because I can see myself getting really into it, but because if I would just follow it a little bit, if I would pay some attention, there would be a situation at some point where I'd go, wow, I'm really glad that I was paying attention to that, because an opportunity arose where I was able to use that and hit it off better with someone. You want to take every opportunity you can take, and so you never want to be so elitist that you go, well, I like comic books and I like video games, and that's it. I'm not gonna.
I don't like movies. Movies can kiss it.
I also always, because I think I made this point before, and I always want to cap this off by saying, sorry for being long-winded, but I just thought of this again and thought it'd be good to mention. But I also want to cap this off by saying, don't think that means that we're telling you that you have to be a giant fan or a giant expert on every single thing there is, you know? I mean,
Nobody
obviously
has the time.
No, exactly. I mean, like I think sometimes people will say to me, "Well, I just wish that I knew as much as you did." I'm like, "Well, you know, pick something and go with it." But it's just nice to maybe have a little bit of knowledge about other things sometimes. Also, is all I'm saying. I mean, obviously, Vince and I both have our like focal points. We have the things that we really focus on. For me, it's Star Trek and comic books. For Vince, it's other kinds of comic books, and some other things that I don't even know.
You know, I was talking to this girl the other day who said, "Wow, you seem to know a lot of stuff." And I said, "Well, here's the deal, girl."
Is that what you said?
No, I said,
you said, "Here's the deal, girl."
I said, "Well, here's the deal. I'm 25. You're 18." like we were talking about how to study things. And
did you tell her that our part of the 90s was better than her part of the 90s? Because it was! Yes.
Well, yeah, it was.
Just kidding, yeah.
But there's Tommy Boy. It was great.
I mean, I have 4 words for her. Pinky in the brain, that's all I'm saying.
Yeah. But that's my point. Sometimes you just need a couple more years.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, like, even the difference between 18 and 23 is significant. The 19 and 23. I mean, all it takes is just a couple of years in a real-world experience. And like, man, I'm screwing up. What am I doing?
And guys, let me also say this, especially for our younger listeners. Vince is 25. I'm 27. There was a time, I'm sure, and I'm putting words in your mouth, Vince, but there were times, I'm sure, in both of our lives where we were younger, whatever age we were, and thinking, God, if only I were older and knew all this stuff that I don't know right now, and it goes by quick, I mean, yeah. And we're not talking obviously we're still young guys, but I'm just saying, if you're 19, if you're 21, and you're thinking, God, I wish I knew as much as Cap and Vince, it's not going to take that long before you get there, and then you're going to look back and go, God, I wish I was still 22, like there's going to be that hot spot year where you wish you could just stay there forever.
I also feel that it's important to say that I have people that are just 2 years older than me telling me, you are where I was when I was your age.
Sure,
People say that to me all the time. They're like, and I'll find.
I think I've said that to you.
Yeah, I think you have.
I mean, I'm married with a kid. You're at a different stage of your life than I'm at.
And that's people I was where you are. Like, I know what you're going through. And I'll find myself looking at people older than me like, man, that 50-year-old guy seems to know everything about comics. Like, how does he know that much? It's because he has 30 years on.
Twice as long as I have.
Yep. So I feel that's important to say. If anybody's like, man, I wish I could. Well, you will. It's just, it takes time. And that's not to say that I'm awesome by any means, or that Cap is awesome by any means.
Oh, no, I'm totally saying I'm awesome by all kinds of means, but no, I'm kidding.
But I'm just saying that it's not that I know anything. I'm just saying.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Yeah, I feel it's important to note.
No, and I'm glad you said that. Life is short. You're going to learn a lot of stuff, and then you're going to wish that it was earlier than it is.
You want to do rants?
Let's do rants!
Do you want to do your...
I'll do mine real quick. So I've been playing Arkham City all week, and that's all I've been talking about because that's all I've been doing. And I thought I would throw out real quick that I kind of wish more midnight releases were more awesome. Like different stores do midnight releases for different things. There's a lot of it for video games. I think I know GameStop does it. I think Best Buy does it. But then there are other companies who do it for other things. And what I don't get are the midnight releases where you just walk into the building and you get your game and you leave. And I'm like, well, why did I leave my house at midnight to get a game I could have gotten at 10 in the morning? And it's pretty much the same thing. Like, I just feel like it ought to be an experience. And I know it's tough for it to be an experience every time, especially for games and things that aren't that popular. I mean, there are a lot of game stores that will do midnight releases for most games, and some of them 2-3 people will show up, and then you'll have other things where there's a release for like 3 or 4 games that all come out the same day, and there's still only a few people who show up because none of them were major releases. Mm-hmm. And so I know it's difficult, but especially for the big ones, I went to the midnight for Arkham City because I found out that the store I was going to was doing contests and things, and it sounded like kind of a party, and it would be fun to go to, and I went, and it was, and we had a really great time. And I was like, how come we don't have this with more midnights? And I guess And so I guess I was just sort of wondering why people go to them, and I guess it's just because they can't wait. They know that it's going to be there at midnight, so they don't want to wait until 10 in the morning, and they want to stay up all night and play it. And maybe it's bragging rights and stuff like that too, but I don't know. I think it's good business also to be like, we're going to have this really fun midnight, and then you'll want to come back to our store, because I know I'm now more likely to go to shop at the store that I did that at, because they have this really fun midnight, and I had a good experience, and so I remember that.
I've never gone to a midnight release of anything.
Yeah.
And my brother has, and he went to one in costume, and they didn't even have a party going on. He just went to it in costume. And I just looked at my brother, and I'm like, what do you do? He's like, I'm making an event of it. I'm like, well, kudos to you for trying to make it a good time. But
you're the only one, though.
I'm like, see, the midnight release of something that's not a party, like, why? Why bother? Unless you're going to spend all night playing it. Unless you intend to beat it by the middle of the next day and review it for IGN or whatever you happen to work for.
Yeah.
I mean, like, what's the point?
When I got Arkham City, I didn't get home until about 1:45, and then I shot a video on it real quick, and so it was 1 a.m. I played for maybe half an hour, went to bed.
I mean, it's your leisure time. You do it at your leisure. What are you doing? Well,
you have diehards.
Yeah.
But well, anyway, what's your rant, Vince?
My rant is about the current season of South Park. I'm totally annoyed by this. It seems like all but one episode has some major fixation on feces and defecation of some kind, or flatulation of another kind.
When your show has gone too long, when you're that far out of ideas that's the arc of the season.
You're right. That is there. There was one episode. What was funny is I'm sitting here watching this season, and I binged watched some of the earlier episodes of this season because I was like, oh yeah, they've released them. I forgot. I better go to their website. And I watched all these things, and I'm going, just getting disgusted. There's a two-parter where everything literally looks like, sounds like, and tastes like crap.
That was a two-parter?
Yes.
You didn't tell me that part.
Oh, yeah, I did.
Oh, I didn't remember you saying it was a two-parter. Really?
Yeah, there's a spoof of the Human Centipede, which, if you don't know what it is, I'm not going to tell you. You shouldn't look it up, but you're going to anyway. So it's disgusting, and which is also...
Is that how you get your kicks, Vince? You plant seeds in people's heads to go look into really horrendous things.
See,
they'll be so curious.
I say you shouldn't, like, for our people that are under 18. This is not something you should look into because it's disgusting. You're going to find pictures you shouldn't have on your computer. But
but you're going to do it anyway.
I say that because maybe it'll deter them. Like, I have willpower. I'm not going to go look. But they have the most recent episode was about people defecating in their pants, or children anyway, and
that makes it worse. Really,
it's just what's funny is that my girlfriend hates South Park. She hates it, and I sat down to watch it, and I had my laptop open. I'm sitting there watching South Park, and it was the only episode that they had this entire season so far, anyway, that has nothing to do with defecation. And it gets to the end, and my girlfriend says, well, that wasn't so bad. That was pretty funny. I'm like, yeah, but that's an anomaly. Like, I'm glad you saw this one. And it was called Last of the Mohicans. So, as opposed to...
Right.
Yeah, okay. So, it was a really cute and funny episode.
Oh, by the way, Last of the Mohicans, you can go look that up. That's fine.
That's fine. For it.
I watched that in a high school class. Go watch that. It's okay.
In fact, while you're looking at it, look up Mark Twain's explanation of Cooper Indians. So first read the book and then read Mark Twain's explanation. So, but
we just thought we'd throw that in there so you know that we've heard of other culture besides geek culture. We've heard of it. True. There's
I was going to recommend that instead of or as opposed to Mexicans, as opposed to Mexicans. So Last of the Mohicans.
Oh, well,
and it's kind of it's sort of a racist joke, but of course it's South Park and they push the edge quite a lot. So I don't know. I like South Park, but this season has only had one episode that I anywhere near liked.
Wow.
Because, I don't know, maybe just potty humor is not my thing, or maybe just belaboring the idea of feces is not funny to me.
Yeah, and I'm sorry if people like that, but to me that's not a taste issue. I don't understand why anybody likes that.
No, the interesting thing is
I don't understand that.
That 2-part episode was about taste issues.
What?
Yeah. Everything looking like, smelling like, and tasting like crap was about becoming an adult and not liking the things that you used to like. And for Stan, the kid that had this affliction, Stan says, "Why does everything happen this way, doctor?" And the doctor says, "Well, you have this particular affliction where all this stuff happens to you, and it's called becoming a cynical so-and-so." And I thought, well, that's kind of funny. And then after they got past that, I was like, well, now I'm in the actual bulk of the episode as opposed to the introduction of the episode, and I hate these people. So, yeah.
That sounds bad.
Incidentally, it's crap. So,
well, thanks a lot for listening to Geekvolution, the podcast. I don't have anything else to say, so we're going to cap it off here. Thanks a lot for listening. I'm Captain Logan.
and I'm Vince.
We'll see you next time.